nos Estados Unidos da América e no Canadá. Esta sessão vai ser em inglês e vamos passar já para essa língua. Temos, portanto, uma casa cheia, como podem ver, e estamos, francamente, muito agradecidos a estes homens e mulheres da criatividade afrodescendente por todo o seu trabalho. So the symposium celebrates the Azorian presence across the Americas, and our intention is to explore identity, memory, and the creative expression. Rooted in the cultural and historical bonds of the Atlantic, we come together through this Simpósio-Filamentos of the Atlantic Heritage to reflect on our shared past and imagine new futures. Our mission is to foster an open dialogue, elevate the creative arts, and build a lasting platform for exchanging ideas among members of the Azorian diaspora. Through literature, scholarship, performance, and public conversation, we honor the island's legacy while strengthening connections between generations, geographies, and cultures. Let this be a time of reflection, imagination, and unity, an affirmation that our heritage lives not only in memory, but also in movement, in words, and in community. So welcome each and every one of you. I'm so glad to have you. It's been too long. We used to have these a bit more often during the pandemic, but now that the pandemic is over, we all have busy lives with things that are in person, and that's great. And it's great to see that all of you have been doing some wonderful things. We're going to start with Scott Edward Erickson, who then has another commitment. So we thank Scott for carving some time here for us, and thank his wife for allowing that as well. And so we appreciate Scott, as all of you know, is an accomplished poet, has several books published, and we're happy to have him here. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Dinesh. Appreciate your accommodating me this evening and letting me go first. And I'm going to read an excerpt from a creative nonfiction piece that appeared in the Right Launch a couple of years ago. It's about our first trip to Piku, and it's called Love and Patience on Mount Piku. Are you sure this is a road? Samantha asked as the black basalt paving gave way to dark red dirt and the deep green grass seemed to grow closer and closer to our rental car. It's supposed to be the fastest way, I answered, according to Google Maps. Then I realized I'd lost the cell signal and my iPhone was navigating blind. We were trying to get to the guide house for an ascent up Mount Piku on the eponymous island in the Azores. Look at this mist. I can hardly see, Samantha exclaimed. A fast-moving gray mist, like fog, only faster, grayer, somewhat denser, began to envelop us. The air was wet, sopping wet, like a dense rain. Only it wasn't raining. The wipers worked overtime and at the highest speed, and yet couldn't keep up with the dampness. A faint, musty smell, salt air, sea-salted mist, made its way into the car when I opened the window to try to see the road. Shit, my wife shouted. Samantha doesn't swear much. She slammed on the brake. Is that a cow? Indeed, it was a cow, black and white and seemingly a foot taller than our sporty little blue Renault rental. It loomed in front of us in the middle of the road, shrouded in mist. That cow needs milking, I said, trying to see the humor in the situation. The cow's udders were heavily laden, practically dragging on the ground. She wasn't in any hurry either. The cow moved off the road a bit, and Samantha inched the car forward slowly, trying to make her way around the business end of the cow. A little over 160 years before us, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, these days probably best known for co-editing the first two volumes of Emily Dickinson's poetry, ascended Mount Piku and wrote about it in his journals. He came to the Azores for 6 months in 1855 to 1856 to alleviate his first wife's chronic illness. Higginson's ascent of Piku started out auspiciously enough. It was very warm and Piku was cloudless before us, which was more than we had dared expect, he wrote. But then, 2/3 of the way up were steep, regular crags of black lava rock and furious wind, It made it the hardest work I ever did. Climbing farther, he noticed the clouds had collected below us, and wherever we looked down, it was a glorious spectacle, a vast horizon of perfectly level white clouds, a vast floor concealing everything below it, except where to the north was a tract of ocean. It was lifted up to a seemingly level with the cloud. Oh my God, there's more, Samantha exclaimed. First one, then five, six, seven, materializing out of the mist. A herd of overburdened milk cows surrounding our vehicle, clogging the road with their bovine forms. The scent of salt air muddled with the smells of the cows gassing, dropping steaming fresh cow patties, and redolent nitrogen-rich cow piss as we drove through little mounds and puddles. No shit, Samantha said. We both laughed, not just at the irony of the scene before us, but also at our predicament. We'd been down this road before, led astray by Google Maps and caught in a place that forced us to turn around. That was early in our relationship. We were making our way around the island of Sicily before heading to a friend's wedding in Palermo. As we left Taormina, Google Maps had us heading over a mountain pass not unlike this one, which, according to the app, seemed to connect to the autostrada on the other side of the mountain. At that time, too, the paved road gave way to dirt and encroaching grass. We felt like we stumbled into a cutting room floor scene from one of the Godfather movies. As the road disappeared and we expected a gang of mafioso to ambush us at any minute. Only here on Piku Island, the mafioso wore the black and white of Holsteins. While not menacing, they made it impossible for us to go any farther, and almost equally difficult to turn around. Samantha put the car in reverse and forward again, turning a K-turn into an X-turn. Then we heard a scraping sound and felt the car lift a bit as the front passenger side wheel spun freely. We were up on a small lava rock. Samantha stepped hard on the gas pedal, but the tires spun, one freely in the air and the others deeper into mud. Wait, I cautioned, don't step on the gas. We're stuck. Let me see if I can get this off the rock. Stepping out of the car, I could see the trouble. The triangular bit of lava rock jutting out from the earth had caught on the undercarriage, just a few inches from the tire. We needed to rock the car a bit to allow the tire to grip the rock, then back off onto flat ground, all the while not digging the rear tires deeper into the muck. I stepped to the front bumper and braced myself to push. Okay, slowly engage the gas with the car in reverse, I said. Samantha did as I instructed, while I pushed the lightweight Renault, lifting it slightly to dislodge it from the tip of the lava. The tire gripped, the car moved, then came crashing down, and a large scraping sound we heard. Stop! Okay, stop, I shouted. I was sure there was some serious damage below. We were paranoid about damaging rental cars on the Azores, having witnessed unsuspecting renters get tagged with hefty fees. We always took photos of existing damage on cars we rented before we took the keys, so we could prove the dents and scratches were there before we drove away, especially on the wheel rims. They love to get tourists on the scratched wheel rims. The misty fog began to give way as Samantha made the K turn into an X turn. Now it was a double X turn. We got the car turned around and faced down the mountain pass. The cows in the rearview mirror seemed to watch us as we drove away, no doubt joking to each other about humanos estúpidos and pessoas loucas. We finally made it to the basalt macadam, and I heard Samantha give a sigh of relief. With this mist, I offered, it doesn't seem like a good day to hike a mountain anyway. We probably wouldn't have much of a view. And I'm going to end there because for time, you'll have to, and you can read the rest of it on therightlaunch.com. Thank you so much again for including me, Denish, and for allowing me to go first. And love to all of you. And I hope to be together again soon. Brushers.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Wonderful read. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful piece. Appreciate it very much. And from Scott, and as I said, Scott is going to have to leave soon, so he has to.
I apologize.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll go to Lotta Goulart. It's the first time I see Lotta reading without a glass of wine, so that's not a good sign, Lotta.
Well,
I
you know,
love the events that you are part of, so I have to move up into the mountain areas.
yeah, you can come up and we have plenty of wine for you. I will share.
Okay, good.
Seriously, maybe we could have a feature. Portuguese reading. How about that? The winery. So I am next. And I feel like I've been on another planet. It's great to see all of you. Wow, it's been so long. You haven't aged at all, so that's good.
Well, I have, but the rest of them haven't.
No, you keep so busy, you can't, you don't age. And I know Melissa, I know you. I've heard your work. It's good to see you. Okay, so I'm going to be reading a couple of poems about, guess what? Immigration. And this first one is called Finding Humanity. Suddenly, she doesn't know where she belongs. This new America, not her grandfather's choice today, only a mirage of the country she was born into, where justice no longer speaks in her language. She crosses oceans and borders, long days of travel till her world turns blue. Cobalt salts, indigo waves crashing. The surf sings, "Welcome back to the Azores." At the feet of her ancestral land, a beach of black rock to embrace her. From the voice of a conch shell, her grandfather guides her to find humanity, a sacred relic in the caldera. I had the good fortune of staying at Flores Island, which is in the background, where I'm here, and I feel like I'm in Flores right now with the background, and it's where my grandfather came from. And they had I don't know if anybody knows or has been there and knows about the Feast of the Immigrant. Does anybody know the Feast of the Immigrant? You do, Dinesh. It's a feast where the immigrant returns and a lot of people come back for the summer. But then there's other ones that haven't been there for years and they return. So this is kind of a poem about that. I was there in the month of July and I got to attend that festival. Festo de Imigrante. They sense the coast near, hear the foghorn's incantation. They have crossed the great ocean, their silver hair blowing in the wind. Voices pulse through the air, some speaking American. At first, just a mist, a slight drizzle primes their memory of waters where their fathers fished. 40 years gone till the waves bring them home. They move down the gangplank. Some smile and carry gifts. Others, heads down, empty-handed. Those on shore don't remember names. One man throws his arms around his mother's neck. She slips his grasp, believing him a ghost. They go back down the road the way they came. Here is home, they say.
Fantastic.
And I'd like to read one more.
Mhm. Sure.
Bound. I found a ship bound for the old country so I could travel back to a past I never lived, to the life of my great-grandmother, the woman who started my story. I twisted her ring on my finger and made a wish. At the altar, I kneeled for prayer and host, asked for the body and blood, asked for the resurrection of her body. I wanted her whole again so we could find our way back together. Crocheted into the night, my Basava talked to me in my language that she couldn't understand. She told me she wanted to go home. A ghost ship docked. It sat silent in the black water and waited for us to board. Her body merged with mine. We returned. The island she remembered was dressed in crags and calderas. She said to me in broken English that when the lava stopped boiling, fish came to the shore and begged to be caught. Her hand filled with sky, breakers flowered on the beach, stones showed their frowning faces. She helped me understand the waves, close and far, showed me how to pass through air, pass through water, enter the salt. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lovely poetry as always. Thank you so much, Lada. Maybe we should all make plans to be in Florida. July of 1920 of 1922 as the birth was actually in April of 22 of Alfred Lewis, but they're planning a big event in July of 2027. So we should just all make a trip, a special trip, and get some kind of funding or something to help us all out. Go into the Floridas for to celebrate Alfred. I think that would be wonderful to go.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, let's. It's being planned right now, and according to the Câmara Municipal, the City Hall.
Please let me know. Please
Well,
let me be
yeah.
informed.
They're supposed to let me know within at least a year ahead of time, so we can.
Okay.
Thank you, Lada. And from Lada, we're going to go to Sam. Sam, welcome to Fresno State via digital. Although you're not too far, you're in Los Banos, where they have a big festa, right? A big festival.
Yep.
Not the Portuguese festa, right?
No, this is cowboy time.
Okay. Welcome, Sam. As all of you know, Sam is also an accomplished poet, lots of books published, and once in a while, a few times a week, he'll be kind enough. I wake up at early, and so I get to my computer at about 5 in the morning, and it's always a treat when there's a poem from Sam.
Well,
I get all upset at myself and the whole world from this poem, but he certainly knows how to do it well. Thank you, Sam, for that.
thank you, sir. It's a little slower than it used to be, and that's because I'm a little slower than I used to be. This first poem, and I don't think I've read any of these, but sometimes you forget. I want to read two poems, and I want to finish with my obituary. It's not really a poem. First one is called Pascoa, Easter. I was born on Easter Sunday, by the way. It was just another Easter Sunday in 1949. History books were flying off the shelves about the real salvation still bubbling people's heads in the nuclear off-ramps. But let's keep it simple here. Churches wallowed in Easter bunnies mixed with hefty doses of salvation. And in a small hospital room off the highway in a certifiably small town in California, a poorly sighted child was born into the communion of man. Take a moment here and weep. Even though the potential for greatness had arrived under a chocolate moon, and that was the beginning of metaphor, along with the death of religion. For the next several decades, people worried the drunken charades, the evil backyards, the monumental races through streets, aligning his allure with, let's say, mushrooms for two, and the overnight stay with insanity at a truck stop on 80 in the snow. Take these chains, she said, and get us out. You look like Jesus, she smiled. Show me the gash in your smooth young side. It was Easter. and all the answers began taking shape, surfacing under the clouds. I wept, as babies often did, as old men today still do. This next one is called Preparing Vinodage with the Dead. Vinodage actually, I think, has a couple of meanings. It can refer to the meat itself. It can refer to the marinade that is used on the pork. Mm-hmm. Some people use them interchangeably. At least that's been my experience. So anyway, preparing vinodage with the dead, and in the poem, the dead is being played by my grandmother. I didn't ask her, but she's there anyway. On a particularly cold morning, by any California standards, he could smell the vinodage every time he opened the refrigerator door. Carolina, his saintly grandmother, was back from her very long visit with God. Every couple of years, she'd check in like that, smile, and immediately send him to the store for garlic and oil and the finest cuts of pork. Then tell him, as he rattled the bags of groceries to snap her out of her sleep for good, continuing in Portuguese, "I've come back to keep you in line. I see you stopped drinking all those years ago, and that's good. But you're still an outlaw at heart, and you haven't set foot in a church in years." Now she says again, in the only language she knows, "Let's make pork and share it with your wife, that beautiful Jewish woman who took pity on you all those years ago. Maybe you can comfort each other when it's time to climb into the clouds." And this is the obituary. Sam Pereira was not born into money, nor did he desire more than his fair share over the years he was alive. Some years he was a marshmallow over a popping fire. Others, a holder of degrees, saying that he had mastered life and could say so in complete, sometimes compound, complex sentences. He discovered alcohol as his fitting mistress for the early to middle adult years of his life. They had no children. Later, in a glimpse of long-sought and realistic love, he tapped into a woman who gave him great joy, occasional pain, and a mixture of remarkably random frustrations throughout his remaining years. It was glorious, he would tell her, while chewing on slices of Portuguese linguiça along with his heavily buttered bagel each morning. She hated that aspect of his makeup, a perfectly appalling attitude toward healthy living and green foods. It would kill him, she used to tell him. It didn't. Something else did. Pereira passed away staring at the ocean, smoking his favorite Danish briar, and holding his last great dog in his lap. His wife was there, holding his hand. Cause of death was a lapsed belief that there was anything beyond this that mattered. The writing suddenly stopped. The breathing became much harder. The wind didn't answer in the mornings like it once had. The water had gone back into the ground to marinate the past. Cremation burned the anger out of him and his ashes. At least we'll fly momentarily over Big Sur in peace. The time had finally come. In lieu of flowers, his wife Susan has asked that Sam's friends find one of his little-known books and spend some time with it. Pick one from the collection and read it out loud, emphasizing the most offensive parts. Perhaps you will recall that they were never meant to be anything but mirrors to the vulgarities that surround us every day. Try to hear Sam reading it out loud in New York City, where he never read. Help ease this newest member of the dead into a pure post-mortem smile for at least a fortnight until he assumes his place alongside the darkness of the blackest stars. Thank you.
Fantastic, Sam. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Great pieces. And from Sam, we'll go to Melissa. Melissa Jessenheiser is local here. As you can tell, Fresno State. She knows how to promote. She does a great job with the College Corp, and which is a wonderful program for our students. She works very hard at it, and she is an excellent writer. Melissa.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here with all of you. It's a balm during these times, which are very trying. So I appreciate it. I'm reading some excerpts from a prose piece or an essay where I do some ruminating on the power of water and grief, and I'm seeing some ties to the poems that Laura and Sam already shared, and it makes me feel even more tied to my Azorian brethren here who are storytellers. So this is called I Heard We Came From Water. In the dream, I kneel in sand, the sound of water lapping against the shore in tiny but not insignificant waves. A body in shadow stands next to me, its hands extending over my head, tipping a container. I look up in time to see Grandma's ashes drop in a gray, dusty cloud onto my face. I open my mouth and consume them. The Bible says God created man by forming him out of dust and breathing life into him. When Adam is cast out of Eden, God curses him. By the sweat of your face, you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. You are dust, and to dust you shall return. But I heard we came from water, tiny cells that multiplied and evolved into fish that can breathe in the depths. And I heard of one fish that can hibernate in droughts and awaken when the waters return, survive with or without it. I heard this fish is our ancestor, proof we began in the oceans, this fish that can breathe dust. I heard we came from water, and to water we will return. Grandpa died when I was 11. We took his ashes to Morro Bay, a sleepy coastal town in California. His wish, he wanted to be spread at sea. Grandma chartered a boat, and a small crowd of mourners gathered to send Grandpa to his final resting place. I watched as Grandma emptied his urn into the sea, noticed how his ashes rested on top of the water, and for a moment he was still whole before the ashes slipped beneath the waves. I imagined pieces of him floated out to distant places, swept along by currents, carried on the backs of sea creatures, swirled along in the wakes of great ships. Parts of him made it to corners both distant and remote. He swam through the warm waters of the Pacific, the frigid temperatures of the Arctic. He lazily coasted through small lagoons. Some of him evaporated to the sky where it joined with other precipitous elements and returned to the earth in fat globules of fresh rain. After his travels concluded, after he explored every earthly waterway, every oceanic zone, his pieces reunited in the deepest part of the ocean. In darkness and pressure at the bottom of the world, he reformed and rose again, a god of the sea. In heavy bursts, he thrust upwards and outwards, one with the currents, which he rode back to California. A few months after Grandpa died, Grandma took me to Morro Bay, just the two of us. I welcomed the singular attention, so used to sharing it with my older sisters. We drove out to Morro Rock, an ancient volcanic plug which juts out of the ocean just offshore. Along its south side, huge rocks and boulders quarried from the great rock itself form the man-made breakers that ease the ocean water heading towards the docks. We took a bouquet of flowers with us and carefully climbed our way onto the breakers as far as we would dare, where we tossed the flowers into the ocean. We threw them against the wind and they tumbled onto the rocks just ahead of us, only to be picked up by sweeping waves and carried deeper into the sea towards where we'd spread Grandpa's ashes. We watched in silence as the last of our offering was carried away by the water. The waves grew larger with the coming tide, nudging us to turn back. I leapt ahead of Grandma, hopping from boulder to boulder when I heard her cry out. I turned in time to see her slip and fall to her knees, her hands scraping against the salty rocks, and I hurried to her side. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said breathlessly. "It was Grandpa. He was trying to keep me." We laughed at her joke, and I helped her stand up. I walked ahead of her slowly, testing each rock before stepping, assuring her that if she followed in my steps, she'd be okay. Every few steps, I'd turn back toward the ocean, searching the waves for a familiar hand. Maybe I saw it. Maybe I saw Grandpa's new form. All 7 feet of his human heft shifted into spinning whirls of water. I imagined him lifting above the spray, reaching for his love, calling her home. Grandma died on the first day of February, Grandpa's birthday. This time we charter no boat, but stand on the water's edge and watch as my mother and aunt wade in and pour Grandma's ashes into the frothy tide. They give us flowers to toss into the waves, which dance back toward us, and my young cousin splashes into the water, grabbing the flowers one by one, launching them back towards the sea. I curve into my husband's embrace, hide my face in his chest, my shoulders crumbling with grief. I do not want to see it happen, to watch as the remnants of Grandma's body slip away among the waves, to know that Grandpa has surfaced from the depths of the ocean and finally called her home. If I could, I would write a new mythology, one where we are the children of stardust and water. At night, over still mirrored lakes where stars and seas converge, we'll worship our ancestors and originators. It is not too far a stretch. Our lives already begin in the liquid of our mother's wombs, whole oceans contained in one bright body. At death, our earthly bodies will burn up like meteors crossing atmospheres, and our families will pour our ashes into lakes and rivers and creeks. I will return as a water spirit, a surveyor of the deep. I will be boundless, cutting canyons through ancient rock, spilling over levees, frothing over your toes as they dig into sand, wrapping whole bodies in fog and mist. My descendants will place their sacrifices at my altar, the sweat on their brow, the gulps of water washing dust from dry throats, and rain trapped in the crevices between shoulders and necks. In return, I'll baptize them in the name of stars we've long forgotten with the cleansing, cool waters of melted snow.
Wonderful, Melissa. Thank you so much. Thank you. From Melissa, we'll go to Canada, to Toronto, and our good friend, Emmanuel Melu, who has also written extensively, who continues to write and has a wonderful blog, who continues to translate as well, and who's also represented in a new anthology that's just published in Canada. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Denise. It's a pleasure to be with lovely Americans, Açorian Americans. I will remain Canadian. I'm sorry. I am going to read a text that I wrote a while ago, several years ago, on the theme of language and identity, and it was published in Antologia Literária Saturnia, Autores Luso-Canadianos by Manuel Carvalho in 2020, and I'm very grateful for Manuel Carvalho for including my thoughts and words in that anthology. Being through words. My parents brought me to Canada when I was 9, and I have lived in Toronto ever since. But those first 9 years of my life in São Miguel, in Portugal's Azores Islands, remain a constant reminder that my deepest roots are still Azorian and that my first language is Portuguese. Even though the English language easily seduced my soul with its charm and beauty after my arrival in North America. It is primarily through language that I have found a meaningful way to understand and define who I am to myself. When I read or write or speak in Portuguese, I am accessing a part of me that is separate from my English language self. The same is true in reverse. I find it painful to recognize that I have never been able to combine both languages into one holistic and fluid expression of myself. What I experience is more like an interior move from one linguistic room to another, a Portuguese room and an English room in my mind's house. I have tried to find a third inner room, a common room where my Portuguese English selves can be together and coexist fluidly and naturally, but the search eludes me. And so I continue to move from one room to the other, always leaving a part of me behind before I enter each separate space of the same house. As palavras são a maneira mais significativa que tenho para manter a minha identidade. Words are the most significant means by which I express my identity. This is why in my writing, I often feel compelled to weave Portuguese words and dialogue through my English text. I strive to merge the words from the two languages that make up my soul and define my experiences of the world as a whole person and not as a divided self. I belong to an older generation of immigrants who share a similar saudade, a nostalgic memory. We are the collective consciousness or witnesses of another geographical place of a long time ago. We belong to the terra onde nascemos, the place where we were born, and the terra onde vivemos, the place where we now live. I still carry many detailed recordações inside myself, and these dormant memories of my past come alive with a word, spoken or read, taking me back to a part of me that still exists in my soul. But when I try to write about these memories in English, they lose part of their nuanced meaning in the translation, perhaps because inevitably the memories, like all memories, resonate with the one remembering. And so I find it easier to write about them in Portuguese because it's the only way I can conjure up the tastes and smells and sounds of my past. When writing about my Portuguese experiences in English, I am conscious of the reader who does not understand Portuguese, and I struggle to find a way to convey these untranslatable emotions. It is a process akin to the parables in the Gospels, where Jesus tries to explain the kingdom of God through metaphors and images. The kingdom of God is like a mansion, a pearl, treasure buried in a field. Saudade is like missing the ocean. It is longing for the smells, sounds, and sights and feel of home. But we are never really able to capture the essence in translation fully. Yet, translation is the means by which we allow others a glimpse of what the original is like. And with that translation, we would be impoverished in our ability to access, understand, and know other cultures and ways of thinking beyond the few languages each of us can realistically manage to acquire in a lifetime. May Sarton, the American poet and writer who was born in Belgium, was an immigrant too, and she succinctly described her challenge of translating from French into English in a way that resonates with my own experience. She wrote, "Translation makes one aware of words and the value of each word. There are so many nuances. It's fascinating to try to find an exact equivalent, and of course, there is none." In translating, like in the parables, we can reasonably approximate the essence if the words are carefully chosen to convey a meaning and a feeling that we can make understandable to the reader of the translated language, in my case, Portuguese into English. There was a decisive moment in my life at the age of 15 when speaking, writing, and thinking in Portuguese faded from my consciousness through less and less usage as English became the dominant and more meaningful language for articulating my thoughts and ideas, not only to others, but especially to myself in the privacy of my own thoughts. In Avelina de Silveira's powerful poem on identity and language, Palavras onde me perco, I was reminded of that psychological experience in my adolescence of leaving the linguistic world of my mother tongue behind. Já não sonho em português. I no longer dream in Portuguese. When I first read these words, I cried, for they were like a stab of truth in the heart. They painfully reminded me of that inevitable moment I experienced when my mother tongue receded to make room for the new language of the country that became home. I admire people who can switch language code easily and who do not agonize over whether or not they still dream in their mother tongue. They can be happily themselves in one language or the other, and even with both simultaneously. But this has not been my experience. And so I rely on hope, or is it simply naive wishful thinking, that after 5 decades of living away from my country of origin, I will somehow still find a way of intertwining the two linguistic worlds that make up my soul into a fluid and equal expression of myself. I strive to reclaim an inner space where I can sonhar em português once again, dive into Portuguese letters, swim in Portuguese words, and luxuriate in their Portuguese sounds as effortlessly as I do in English, that once upon a time foreign language that is no longer foreign, but is even more intimate, familiar, and an integral part of me than the language of my childhood. Yet I can still be lured back to the mother tongue when the siren words of Portuguese beckon to me, and then I lose myself in the words of my childhood. Eu fico perdido nas palavras da minha infância. I dive into the infinite ocean of words, mergulho no mar infinito das palavras. I swim on the waves of a persistent longing that teases my parched soul for the past. Nado nas ondas de saudade que me perseguem e torturam a minha alma, faminta pelo passado longínquo. But I almost don't remember the words anymore. Quase que já não me lembro das palavras. So far are they from me now. Tão longe que estão de mim agora. In this world, neste mundo of English words that seduced and mothered my Portuguese soul. And to end, I'd like to read Avelina Silveira's poem, which inspired the text I wrote, Palavras onde me perco. How I long for the days when words were essential. Outros tempos quando a palavra encerrava uma certeza existencial. Corps et mot, moi-même in a fabric of being. Foi há tanto tempo que parti. As palavras custam a vir. como se eu as quisesse articular, mas houvesse uma pedra na garganta. A voz lusitana escorre sem que dela eu beba, quase alien, porque já não sonho em português. Palavras, words, mots perdus, labirintos de imagens onde me perco na ânsia de chegar à outra margem de mim. J'ai changé le profil du jour et j'ai perdu mon visage en ces temps. Never again myself between the sea and the maples. Oh, tragédia de emigrar, de partir sem chegar, tecendo na diáspora être d'ici et de toujours. Demain sera un autre pays, un autre matin, de identidade dispersa. I'll be searching in yesterday for the name of a water bird among the snow. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. Lovely piece and a lovely read of Lina da Silveira, a good friend that I've known for such a long time. So from Emmanuel, we'll go to Millicent Borges Accardi. We share that same lovely Borges name. Millicent.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I was muted.
Thank you. Thank you. So everyone, of course, knows Millicent. She has published quite a few books. She's always writing. She's always creating, and she is a champion for Portuguese American poetry. Millicent, please.
Oh, thank you. I'm so moved by all of the work before me, and I feel like I need like a palette. It was so beautiful, everyone. It's almost we don't need the words for it. It's so beautiful. I've chosen two short poems from my book Through a Grainy Landscape, which is inspired by Portuguese writings. And then I'm closing with a poem about casting a spell, witchcraft. The first poem is called A Man Sleeps, the Skies Move. It happens that way, the sleep comes or not. We stay awake and the worry over a knock at the door at 5. When you are 5, your parents sit you down and smoke. They say, ah, it is difficult thing. They say, you are our child, born in America, and we are trying. We filled out the paperwork. We hired an attorney. There was a problem with an entry date. Our visa was late, but we did everything we could. There was a problem. Do you understand? Colombia. That is what it is. We moved and were a day late in reporting our new address, and we are trying. So there is the sky. We save money in a jar that looks like water, the glass dense and broken in the jar. At any rate, you are born in America. You are okay. Please be an adult. I know you are in kindergarten and want to pick roses for your teacher, but please listen and listen and listen for a moment. Listen for your whole life. There may come a day when we might be away. Memorize your auntie's number. Take care. Watch the rain clouds. Do the dishes. Do not fall asleep without worry. The next piece is a representation of itself. And the world is my idea, except when it isn't. And Schopenhauer will solve all the problems. When we dance this close or when the solutions elude us, as parents tuck us in late at night after dancing in highball Harvey Wallbangers, smelling of boozy wickedness. It was a rare existence, this being left alone to fend on one's own, long after it was well enough. And so it was life or sadness, or a lack of ambition that caused the downfall, to take away whatever it was that we thought imagined. In our dreams as navigators of the seas, for a moment it was truly, really, hold on tight, belonging to us, once and for always. And the final poem is a new one. Over a cup. A mere leanness of the soul, we know we can be better. We are to a greater flame burned up by terrible things, seeds scattered by hand, sacrifices made of the dead. The old anger of him, a snare, a whoring of the women under open hands, and the light ought to be red. The candle pink. Better yet, as these acts gather force around me at all times at will, the spell, magic. Even though I knew better, I was apart. Even though I knew nettle, saffron, licorice, rhubarb, rosemary, chickweed, clover. Even though I knew, I went there, far from the hand of him and the waters, the molten image of him, far from the good sea on which I have drawn in many demon figures. Write his name in a circle. Hold it over the cup. Him born, him born, him born, him born. Here. Hold the sea under the cup. Men are unimaginable targets. The lamp is lit and the wormwood seeds are cast on top until the seventh wick flickers. Nettle, saffron, licorice, rhubarb. Of this spell, nettle, saffron, licorice, on this day, of this hour, quickly, immediately, rapid, now, over the cup, a daily cup, everlasting, the outlasting of this cup, drink in, like a night we have all known, many of us have known. Repeat the words, the holy words, the godly words, 7 times following. Find a good drinking cup. The owner ought to have used it. Rosemary, chickweed, clover. Even though I knew, rosemary, chickweed, clover. The lamp was lit 7 times over a cup, a good drinking cup, a spell to say that the cows still graze on common land. The villagers share a common oven. Granite dwellings have a cross at the door to ward off the devil. Be it known, we are dried up in its depths, this life. Even though I knew better, I am part of this Brusha spell. Nettle, saffron, licorice, rosemary, chickweed, clover. Nettle, saffron, licorice, rosemary, chickweed, clover. The lamp is lit and it ought to be red, the candle pink.
Fantastic. Two classics from your book that I love, and a wonderful new poem. Thank you so much, Millicent. Thank you, thank you. We'll go to Carlo Matos, and as I said, Carlo has a new book coming out with Amy Sarah Batista, or Batista. Is it Sarah Batista, right?
Sarah Batista.
And Amy and Carlo have a new book coming out. I can just tell you it's a must read, and I think everyone will enjoy it. And congratulations. Great work, by the way, Carlo.
All right, thank you, Denise. That was very kind, very sweet. So nice to see you all. It's been a long time since we have all gathered together. So I'm just going to read a couple things. I'm going to read a short chapter from my novel As Malcriadas, or Names We Inherit. And then I'm going to read something new from the manuscript I'm currently working on called Turbulence, or at least that's what it's called right now. Chapter 9, M dash. I'm watching the last of the old funerals. Every cop in town showed up in uniform, even the honor guard with their perfect white gloves. A band came and played a dirge. They arrived with a pair of tubas, a bass drum, a trombone, some wind players, and a man whose touch on the cymbals was so light and his face so serene, it appeared he could already see the other side. And of course, what remained of the old ladies of the village, already old when I was a child, wondering who might be left to send them away when their time came. These Azorians of the New World don't express their sorrow in mirth or drunkenness, nor with wild or professional weeping, but by being more obdurate than death itself, by waiting in a silence so grim and black-clad that death stalks by in fear of their sternness. Some kind of odd substitution has occurred in my mind. I cannot seem to process the word for grandmother. I'm not sure why this other word, why the word mangueira, why it keeps insisting upon itself every time somebody offers their condolences. I am so sorry for your mangueira. Your mangueira is in a better place. God has called your mangueira to him. It is one of the many absurdities that pop into your mind as you beat back the terror of a world containing one fewer person who loves you. And so Mangueira, 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 like an invocation. Mangueira is not Spanish, which is Mangueira. It's not the English word for hose. The hose is something the neighbors use to fill their pools or lubricate the slip and slide or feed the sprinkler that saturates more sidewalk than lawn. Mangueira isn't hose. Mangueira is grandfather, is avu, home for the weekend from the sweatshop that would eventually kill him when you were 9. Watering his lawn like prayer, like the closest he'd ever come to God was in loving every petal of grass completely, with absolute attention and without prejudice. Mangueira is grandmother, is avó, is the plastic runner and metal taste of water when school is out for summer and you need a drink but can't enter the house because she, usually the surest place for love, will beat you within an inch of your life with her schnelle if you track dirt on her freshly mopped linoleum. Mangueira is water, is an interrogation of the road you took when you left town, because this place is a place to die in, a place without silence and repose. My parents are at the head of the receiving line. We are nearly 20 deep, a small generation sired from a much larger one, and I'm at the very end, putting as many people as possible between them and me. All night I have to deal with sidereal glances from the old ladies for not being in my proper place as the oldest grandchild. Just more proof that I am unkind, disrespectful, a bad daughter, a malcriada. But I don't care. I am here for my grandmother. I am not here for them. I am not here for my parents. And I'm getting out of town the second my beautiful avó is laid to rest and going to visit Gilgamesh and her new baby in Providence. Plus, every time I get too close to the corpse, because that body is not my grandmother, I want to laugh in that way one laughs when everything has gone completely wrong and nothing to be done. I leave her body to its private silence. A body in silence breaks the devil's laughter and is an interrogation of that laughter. My avó used to say, "O diabo é sempre bom para rir, mas ele é único a rir," which means the devil is always good for a laugh, but he's the only one laughing. Do these somewhat familiar mourners wonder what it's like to laugh without speaking, to take from a muttering of shoulders a measure of the recubus, like a dare to keep living? Is it like this? Like an irony that unravels, or is it like this, like a road that is water, that buckles like a parched tongue, a tongue that breaks where the rocks are deep and then too quickly shallow? My tongue is also shallow and does not reach, like displacement in a mouth of water. I cannot speak when they shake my hands. I cannot speak to explain. My mouth is water, but not a body I want to drown in, a body that buries what I thought to share. It is a breath from below that cracks a road that isn't water, but still holds the memory of you, like rivers are said to do, like grandmothers are said to do. I am sad sometimes to think I shall never be buried in a family plot in Notre Dame Cemetery, a cemetery full of my people with a French name. When my time comes, no one will water the earth newly turned, no mangueira to bind me to the land, my body an interrogation that pretends not to be an interrogation. Okay. And then, this is from my new manuscript that I'm currently working on. It's called Rocks All the Way, and it's got a translation of Alemão Oliveira's lines, and these are Denise's translations. So thank you, Denise. I stole your words. So here we go. Rocks all the way. Where we grew up, we were never far from the ocean, like our parents, whose island home was sick with ocean, drunk with ocean, exhausted by its promises, 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 promesa, promises, 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 promise, promise, promises, 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 promesa, promises, 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 promises. S's like waves and waves and waves, sliding and abraded. Yet, when it came time to name our high school garage band, the dream of music a drain full of broken promises, we chose the name Shallow Water because we may have loved the ocean, but we were far more well-versed in the signature of rocks. Almo de Oliveira said, no one asks what lays beyond the rocks because it is rocks all the way down. Well, some say turtles. It was all the same to us because we knew what would happen if we jumped from too high up, or if we looked before we leapt, or if we sailed unknown waters too far from our small shores. We could ill afford to hide in our shells, so we mimicked animal distress instead, played seagull with a plastic ring binding its beak, and then drowned whatever came to our rescue. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And this is it's lovely because it's Alamu's 80th birthday today.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. Talk to you later. Turn it over to Nancy Vieira Couto, who has been traveling throughout a good part of Portugal, north, south, Lisbon, and she's been kind enough to put all those pictures that of all of her adventures. So thank you for taking us along. We appreciate it. At least I do very much.
Okay, well, thanks. I'm glad somebody's enjoying my pictures. I enjoyed what I saw of Portugal, and there's still more to see.
Was this your first time to some of those areas?
The first time in the Algarve. It was not my first time in Porto and Lisbon, but the Algarve and Évora also the first time. I'm going to read a couple of poems actually set in New Bedford, where I grew up, where I was born and grew up. A lot of people, when they think of Azorians coming to the United States, think of them working as fishermen, or they came on a whaling boat, or they're dairy farmers. And of course, some of them are. But in New Bedford, at the beginning of the 20th century, it was the textile mills that were doing the hiring. And that's where my parents met each other, working in a textile mill. So I sort of owe my life to textiles. The poem, I'm going to read two poems, and the first one is called Angie Appropriates a Bar or Two. Angie appropriates a bar or two of Dixie, belts them out over dinner dishes, muffs the lyrics, hums the rest, ad-libbing the refrain. All she knows about the land of cotton is it's far away, and for all she cares can stay there. She's done with cotton, never wants to see another spooling frame or harness, done with drop wires, heddles, and that son of a bitch of a boss with a permanent leer rested across his face. Still, it wasn't all bad, she thinks, reaching for the Brillo and remembering how Eddie's tough guy voice and cocky defiance attracted her attention toward his hazel eyes and wavy hair parted straight down the middle, but mostly she threaded her own heddles, went home to Ma and Pa, emptied out her pay envelope on the cloth-footed table, the tiny clump of bills, Liberty standing, Liberty walking away, walking uptown on Saturdays, browsing in the aisles of the 5 and 10, stopping to play I Love Coffee, I Love Tea on a toy piano, when who should appear but Eddie, and what's this? He wants to walk her home. Barely 5 feet tall, she's smart and high-principled. He's tired of his floozies with their come-ons and off-color jokes, ready to settle down with a nice girl, any nice girl, even this one, whose big apprehensive heart clatters inside her ribs. So they talked about the mill, about his 5 brothers and 4 sisters, mostly about how he was going to make it someday, make it big. And by the way, could he take her out next Saturday and the Saturday after. He'll have to ask her pa, she says, and he, not one to waste time, decides to get the asking over once and for all. 20 minutes later, they're engaged to be married, her ma putting a pot of coffee on to keep the patterned wallpaper from spinning. Angie holds the doily down with her elbows while her pa rolls a cigarette. Even Eddie needs something to hold on to as the textile industry moves south, as Mussolini moves on Ethiopia, as Hitler moves on the world. The world survives for now. And now here she is, a ma herself, with a sink full of greasy pots to scrub, a third-story tenement to mop and polish. She launches into God Bless America, still marveling over all the trouble music can get you into. And now a poem about a childhood memory. I grew up on Rivet Street in a Portuguese neighborhood of New Bedford, and it was, I think, the best place to grow up anywhere. But sometimes scary things happened, and this memory is sort of a little bit scary, not extremely scary. The poem is called Invitation to the Glue Factory. Trotting along in those mid-heel Oxfords old ladies used to wear, she picked up speed, pocketbook slung bobbing from the crook of an elbow. I said to my father, "Look, Frank's grandmother." We were in the car, and she was in a hurry. On her way to the glue factory, my father said, skin and bones. He told me about glue and how it's made and how, when you get old, your invitation thuds into the mailbox and off you go. No, I screamed, although I knew there was no factory on Dartmouth Street, just some shops, a shoe repair, a fish market. We passed her halfway to the Dunbar School. She didn't look afraid, but I said, "Stop, please, we have to warn her." My father laughed, pressed harder on the gas, and off we went. It was just a joke, my mother said when we got home. Your father is sorry he upset you. 2 days later, I saw Frank's grandmother walking in her yard, looking just fine. Now that I am old, I check my inbox several times a day and plan ahead. I know what I will need. A crossbody bag is easy on the elbows, and sturdy mid-heel Oxfords, stitched, not glued, are back in style. I will want full-grain leather or fine Italian suede and, of course, a Goodyear wilt. When I hear the ding, I will open my invitation, note the date on my calendar, and check Google Maps. When it's time, I will pack my bag and tie my shoes and trot to Dartmouth Street to stare down the cold, hard blocks. Then I'll turn the other way and run like hell. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nancy. Great poems. So much. And so as we come to an end, I said earlier from the poem that Carlo read, from the reading that he did about that it was Alamo Oliveira's. Alamo, for those of you who, I think a lot of you know who he is. Alamo is 80 years old. Unfortunately, he's had some very dramatic health issues in the last few years, and last few months, I should say. And in the last few weeks, he was in a coma at a hospital in Angra. He's broken the coma. He's home with a niece that's taking care of him, but he's not well. We wanted to celebrate his 80th birthday, certainly in a different manner. He's just turned 80 today. We're hoping that he is making a recovery, so we're hoping for the best. And I'm just going to leave you with this with Alamu. So one of his, it's very short. It's called "Song of Resignation," and so to commemorate his 80th birthday. Probably not the most uplifting poem, but it's called "Song of Resignation," and it's a lot of what Alam wrote, especially during the 1960s and 70s when we had a lot of immigration. He is probably our best Azorian poets, him and Pedro da Silveira from the island of Flores, for the issue of immigration. They both had an eye out for it. They both had families. They both understood it. And Alam wrote, "We all started eating bread with sugar in our land plowed by worms. We are farmers of poor luck. On the island, we glorify cornbread. Our eyes travel on Sundays at Mass because we only believe in the God of the churches that smells of rotten flowers, of sweat, of mildew, and tastes like fleas with incense. We wear denim that comes from America as handouts and by immigrant tradition. We walk barefooted. God and the island know that we walk barefooted in the purity of our winter that takes the efforts of our summer. Moreover, the island has hands that drown." So maybe not the best poem, but it was the one I had chosen. But it is a lot about basically the immigration experience, which is covered a lot in Alam's work. So we are hoping the best for him as and dedicate this session to him as he tries to make a recovery as a real bad pneumonia. As you all know, that can be dangerous, and Alamu didn't take care of himself physically as much as he should, and so he's had some issues, but we're hoping for the best. I couldn't actually talk to him today; he was not feeling well, but hopefully we'll be able to talk to him the next couple of days. Anyway, I thank you all for attending. I thank you all for sharing your awesome work. I thank you all for what you do. We hope all of you are producing. We hope all of you will be publishing soon, and we must continue to have your voices out in the world, but certainly the Portuguese American world, and make them known even better than they already are. But there's still a lot of work to be done. Thank you all for your poetry, for your writing, for your inspiration, and for all you do. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Muito obrigado. Um abraço para todos.
Thank you.
Até
Thank
logo.
you.
Boa noite.
Obrigado. Boa noite.